I forgot. Yeah.
Yep. Dwayne Casey, he won Coach of the Year and got fired.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And like DeMar
Coach of the Year with
was
who?
like the star of the franchise, and they traded him and the head coach.
John and I could actually talk basketball.
I would love
John's
to.
big basketball.
Yeah.
JBB.
I was
John
so
Big
excited for Blake Griffin to get on a team with Andre Drummond, and then nothing happened.
I know, right?
I'm so sad.
Yeah.
Oh, also, I didn't expect the fucking Celtics to implode.
That's wild.
I 100% I was even leading up to the what was it, semifinals?
Yeah.
How far did they even get?
It should have been a championship squad, potentially.
I 100% was like, no, Celtics will figure it out.
Yeah, they're fucking deep. And they got
they'll
Kyrie.
get it together.
Yeah.
And then they just fucking never did.
No, because Kyrie's a head case, unfortunately.
Yeah. And he's with Durant now, which is going to be bonkers.
That is.
In Brooklyn.
Yeah.
God.
The team nobody cared about that just made them relevant.
But they had to but they traded D'Angelo Russell, so
yeah.
What is the team anymore?
I know.
There's no identity to the team other than Kyrie and Durant now.
Yeah, which not even Durant, because he's going to be out this year.
God.
Yeah.
Oh man, who's the coach of the Nets?
God,
Jay-Z. Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. This is episode number 13, and my name's Kevin Portelli. I'm here tonight with our co-host Randall Nolery.
Hey everybody.
And DJ Mandolini.
Am I not a co-host?
Yeah, you're also a co-host. My co-host tonight. My co-hosts tonight. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce the plural.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's plural.
And then we've also got
proper credit.
We've also got a non-co-host, a non-host tonight, John Heinze.
Hello, I'm John Heinze.
He lives across the street, and he came over today.
Connection I have.
He came over today to talk about some games.
I've been looking into the window every week and being like, "What's going on?"
You know,
Putting
he
up
has the
sticky notes in the window.
Yeah. You know, we're only friends because he has the Sega Genesis, and I have a Nintendo, and you know, he has all the good games. He has X-Men.
Thank you for admitting that Sega Genesis has better games. Continue.
No, but John, we've mentioned John a bunch of times on the podcast before, bringing him onto the podcast today, and we're doing our game of the month this month or this week, and we've got Bloodstained Curse of the Moon.
That's right.
Why don't you get us started, John? What did you think of this game? I know you were playing a bunch of Ritual the night beforehand, and you went to pick this up. So
I wasn't following the Kickstarter or the development of Ritual of the Night that closely at all, so I didn't know any of the history behind it. I just knew it as a game that looked like Castlevania, and I was like, oh, that looks cool. I'll pick that up. And then it was after the fact that I realized that it was the same developer and that it had this history with Castlevania. And I've actually not played a ton of the NES Castlevanias or the Super Nintendo. I basically started at the GBA and then moved on through the DS releases as well.
Same exact, yeah.
Those are the great ones.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, so I kind of bounced off the NES Castlevanias because I was used to like that greater control with jumping and not, having a very strict move set and movement abilities that you
That's
have.
interesting. I didn't even think about that, like the jump, just the general movement feeling so different in these games.
The exact reason why I switched over from veteran to casual was because buddy, I beat this game on casual.
That's okay, man. As long as you're having fun, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of playing a game.
The main reason why was I would clear a screen of enemies and then I would try to go back to get all the candles to get the hearts so that you'd use the abilities, and inevitably I would always jump into a pit. Yeah. Like just trying to, with no enemies on screen, I would just lose all my lives.
Yeah. I didn't even realize you could go back to or do you mean before you advance to the next screen?
Before I would move on to the next screen.
Right. Yeah. Okay, interesting.
But
interesting, yeah. But I'm in the same boat. I have pretty minimal. I've definitely played. I own all three of the original NES Castlevania games, like in cartridge form. I popped them in to test them out and just kind of, make sure they work in one regard, but also just to pop them in and give them a quick spin. And I want to say this game is mostly inspired by Castlevania 3. You have a few different characters that you can, I think there's 4. I think there's actually even a few more characters in different modes, but I've only played the main mode. I thought I heard there was another character. Well, anyways, there's at least 4 different characters. I don't know that you're correct, DJ, but we'll get into that later.
Well, according to the lore, there's only 4 games.
What's that?
There's only 4 characters. But...
Okay, well, I'm wrong. Per usual.
Just like I said.
But yeah, so I had only played a little bit of the NES games going into this, and this was kind of my first foray into, fully fledged foray into this kind of game. I mean, obviously, I've played a ton of NES side-scrolling platformers that are pretty tough, but, first Castlevania-esque experience. But, DJ, why don't you dive into it a little bit, since you're the most versed in these, probably.
It seems like I've got the opposite experience of everyone else, because growing up, this Castlevania 3 was the only Castlevania game we owned, and my dad and I just played the shit out of it. Like, they even had, back then, the passwords would just be like a grid that you had to fill out, and we would play in our basement, and we would carve into the unpainted cement walls the different passwords.
Jesus.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, got a lot of experience with that one, and yeah, this Bloodstained very much resembles Castlevania 3 the most. I'd say the 4 characters in Bloodstained resemble pretty closely the 4 characters that you get.
I think it might be 5.
Yeah, I definitely think you unlock.
You can play as Dracula.
It's Alucard.
Sorry for the sirens, by the way, if anybody's listening in the car.
Oh, I can hear those ones.
I always whenever I'm listening to a podcast while I'm driving to work or something, I'm like, oh shit, I'm getting pulled over. And then it's just sirens in the background on whatever podcast I'm listening to. But anyways.
But yeah, so this was a pretty big nostalgia trip for me, but it was also nice to see a lot of improvements. One of the biggest complaints about the old Castlevania games is the stairs mechanics, needing to if you're near some stairs but you need to duck or whatever, it's very easy to get caught going down when you really just want to crouch. And I feel like the level design in this game made it so that wasn't really an issue. Another thing that was nice was just being able to if you're jumping and you're and the stairs are right under your feet, you're not starting from the bottom of the stairs, but you could just land partially upway from the bottom of the stairs,
right? Midway.
Yeah. It's just that just makes sense.
That was something from the tiny bit I've played of the NES Castlevania games. That was something I definitely noticed, was these stairs feel a little better. I didn't have as much of a grasp on it, but I was just these feel better for whatever reason.
Yeah. And the design makes everything way more intuitive. Hearts actually heal you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not your weapon currency. Yeah.
Yeah. And
took me a second.
Right. And all the candles look the same in the old NES games, but in this one it's just different colored lanterns. You can see this is going to give me a new item.
Yeah.
So if I have something I I know I can just avoid this and not accidentally hit it and run into it and have something I hate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I still found myself accidentally grabbing heart containers and getting health with a character that had full health. When I was clearly switched off of a different character, but also again with more buttons on the controller. I don't know how it worked in Castlevania 3, but you can just hit the shoulder button and just quickly cycle through the characters. And I also liked how each continue, I don't know, again, maybe this is how it worked in Castlevania 3 as well, not to just keep drawing the comparisons, but I really liked how a continue was all of your characters had their own independent health bar. They all had to die before you lost one of your lives, or your continues or whatever.
Yeah, I really liked that. I liked being able to strategically switch characters in and out. It wasn't just you died with one character and you automatically move on to the next one. So you really can choose exactly when you want to switch in a character.
Or if you find a health item, like you can switch to a character that has low health.
Right.
Yeah, or like when you have the mage character, I forget his name, but like when you do that like
Alfred.
fire barrier,
Yep.
what's his name?
Alfred.
Yeah, when you do the little like fire barrier attack,
Yeah.
like you can do that and then switch to
switch.
another
Yeah,
character.
that's really cool.
And just plow through and do a bunch of attacks because Alfred is he's kind of weak. He's got his little
Yep.
wooden staff, and that's about all he can do. You know.
Although
So-
I don't know if it's spoilers or not, but there's one boss that Alfred is like, from what I played, necessary.
Almost,
Yes.
they almost give you like a power up. If you're talking about the
Yes.
same one I'm
directly
talking about.
before that, like is
the
the
pirate
only
ship.
yeah,
Yeah,
and like lightning. Is
they
like
only
the
give that
only-
power up to him in very specific. Like you're about to face a boss, and if you only have Alfred,
Right.
you have no chance
Because
unless you have this
I
power
tried
up.
beating that boss with, I believe, Miriam, and like I could not land a single hit because like
Is
it was
Miriam the
always-
purple character?
Yeah.
I don't know any
She
of the
has- she has
names.
the whip,
Okay,
like,
yeah,
mechanic.
that was my favorite character. Probably,
Yeah,
if I had to
yeah,
pick
she's
one.
like at the traditional move set of
She's-
like
she's
a
good.
Castlevania game.
Yeah.
traditional move set, but a high
Higher
jump.
yes.
Not
The
necessarily a
slide.
further jump, but a higher jump, and then kind of that Mega Man slide, like where you can slide under a tight
Just-
gap.
The easiest to platform with, I would
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Although that was a thing that like I'm guessing it's a mechanic that's in all of the Castlevania games where like you have if you're doing a vertical jump, you're just going to be moving up and down, and if you have a directional jump, you are going to be moving a fixed distance.
yes,
And that
not
was-
a fan.
That is absolutely not a mechanic
Not a
I was
fan.
used to, because I've played I'm a huge fan of the Metroid series, and if you're doing a vertical jump, you can still move during that, but you have greater precision controls. Whereas if you're doing a directional jump, you can still move, but you're doing a spin attack at the same time. So
It's unrealistic, man. These games are trying to be realistic.
Yeah,
you
you
can't
always-
change your velocity.
you always move 4 feet every time you jump. You can never change.
It is unrealistic, but that is exactly why I play video games, to escape reality. I can't jump and control my velocity midair.
You'll land in the
real
same
life.
spot
But
every-
yeah, I wanna be able to do that in a video game. Like that's why I like the Mario games so much. You know,
Yeah.
I can finesse my way through the platforming as opposed to like having to strategically plan my way through the platforming, which
And
is
that's how later Castlevania games are as well. Like
Yeah.
they're more
they're
like,
more finesse, and
you're able to
they have more of
adjust
like
it.
that RPG element of like getting a bunch of upgrades and level ups and this and that, which this game has less of,
Yeah,
or
they're
almost
easier.
none of. But like, and I don't hate these mechanics, but I just like I prefer the feeling of like the finesse as opposed to the feeling of the precision.
That said, I don't think I noticed it after the second level.
I
think-
noticed it throughout the whole game personally.
I know I made a really boneheaded jump on the last boss where like I accidentally made a directional jump just off. the
Oh, yeah.
side
Did that more than
and
once.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
just like, oh god. But for the most part, like once I got to the end, like it had been ingrained enough in me that like I wouldn't make those jumps anymore.
yeah,
But it definitely did take until the end of the game.
yeah. Well, what's just before, I mean, we can dig deeper into this game, but what's everyone's opinions on this game? Just in terms of like, did you like it? How does it stack up? How do you feel overall?
I loved it. I really liked
Loved
this
it,
game.
okay.
I think if you were to stack, like Shovel Knight, if you were to stack this game up against actual NES games, it'd be top tier.
all three of us just like
Yeah, you're talking some shit, man.
Talking some
No, but
shit.
go ahead. Go
comparing
ahead.
this to a good game.
Oh, okay.
no.
I'm glad I went
I'm
first
not-
then, so I can fight.
I'm not that extreme. I'm not that extreme, but go ahead, Randall. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you did. That's okay though.
I was gonna say, I guess I did, but I shouldn't have, is what I should have said.
No, I think this. I honestly, I loved playing this game, and the design language. They just nailed that old Castlevania feel. I also was somebody that owned all the old, still do own all the old Castlevanias on NES and Bloodlines on Genesis and Super Castlevania 4 and played through Symphony of the Night, and so loved the series too. But yeah, like to the point where I bought one of those overpriced NES controllers from the Nintendo Switch Online thing, and I'm like, oh, I've got this. I wonder if this will work. And there are enough buttons to make it work to play through this game. It takes a little finagling to set it up, but once it's set up, it actually does work.
So you can
that-
hit like select to switch the characters and stuff like that.
So there's actually embedded right and left shoulder buttons.
Cool.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I just ended up using those, which is obviously not traditional NES control, but it had a better D-pad than anything else I had available too. So I made it work.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I didn't know those had a couple extra buttons on them, so that's cool.
Totally. So that was fun. It was a fun way to go through this game.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to sound overly negative on this game by any means. I had a fun time. I beat the game, which I don't typically do with video games. I typically, like, I hit a wall where I'm like, okay, I've had my fun and it's time to move on to something new. But I did see this one through, and it is a shorter game. I think it took me only 2 hours or so to play through the game on, like, the standard normal difficulty. But after you beat it, you do unlock a few different modes. But again, I just tend to prefer to play platformers that have more of that, like, finesse that feels like I'm, like, you can make some jumps that feel like you're, like, getting away with something, or, like, you're making, like, kind of like, or just being more daring and crazy with stuff, where, like, this game feels like, again, you have to, like, oh, I made that mistake. Okay, now I know what to do. And I don't hate that, but I just tend to lean towards platformers that feel more like I'm, like, I can find ways around it. But I did really appreciate, like, you know, all the characters have different abilities, which then allow you to, like, if you have all the characters available, there's a lot of different, like, branching paths for, like, a game that isn't a Metroidvania by any means. You know, they're just like set levels, but you have a bunch of different ways to go about it for different secrets or just shortcuts or whatever you want to call it. And all the characters feel pretty well balanced and differentiated from one another. I definitely had a good time playing this game. I don't see myself going back and playing through all the different modes and stuff, but or the, you know, the new game plus or the nightmare mode or whatever. But I, you know, if I get the urge to play this game again, you know, I like to know that nightmare mode's there. Like, oh, okay, I have a different challenge waiting for me, as opposed to, like, oh, I just replay the game for the sake of it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I felt similarly after I beat it the first time, thinking, like, I'm not sure if I'm going to necessarily go back to do these other modes, but I, you know, gave it a shot, went through nightmare mode, and with that one, you don't have Zangtzu, you just have the other three characters, and you're going through the levels exactly the same as before, but it's really cool to go back through the early levels again that have these shortcuts built in for the other characters that now you can take part in.
And they're clearly deliberately made. Like, you see, like, a jump that you physically can't make with a character that you don't have access to.
You have to, like, turn into the bat and fly over there. Or
and they telegraph that really well so that you'll see that, and you see that and you're like, oh, this is something I need something else to get through.
Exactly. And I love how they have those little, like, kind of, I don't know, the dead, like, skeletons or whatever that are, like, pointing you towards, like, either sometimes they're pointing you just in the general direction of, like, move ahead in the level. And sometimes they're like, here's a little secret over here if you have the right ability or whatever. And I like that touch. Like, it telegraphs without, like, you still have to complete the challenge to get there, or to the challenge once you get there. But it kind of shows you, like, this is a way to go. Not like you're not just wandering around aimlessly. You're not wasting time just combing these levels. You know, they kind of let you know, hey, secret over here.
Right. What's cool about nightmare mode, like, aside from the fact that, you know, all the boss fights are a little bit harder, like, some bosses will, like, you know, attack quicker, or, like, you know, on the very first boss, like, where there's the boss that shoots the fire onto the ground, in hard mode, like, that lingers and you have to attack it so that you can actually stand on the ground again. Like, little subtle changes like that.
Okay.
But the 8th level is completely different. You're doing a level where the three of you of your characters, like, split off and have their own sections of the level that they have to complete on their own, and then there's a new boss fight at the end. So, like, I feel like it decently rewards you for going back through the game again. But I'm curious if any of you are at all familiar with, like, the last mode, or
What is the third mode? Because I saw there's, like, three. There's, like, the normal mode or veteran or whatever it is, and then there's, like, the 2 question marks, which one is nightmare mode, and then there's another one after.
So to be honest, I forget the name of the mode.
That's
okay. So it's a mode where you're only Zangtzu, and you're only him because in your normal playthrough of the game, you do something that I didn't know was an option.
This is what I was thinking about earlier.
Yes, when you beat the first 3 levels and you are introduced to these new characters, you can just straight up kill them.
Oh, jeez.
Instead of talking to them and getting them to join your party, you can just kill them.
And when you kill them, Zangzu gets a new ability.
Ooh.
Okay.
It's called
And
Ultimate Mode, by the way.
Ultimate Mode, thank you. And one of those abilities is a double jump.
Oh. So, can you jump in one direction and then jump back in the okay, that just changes the game.
Game of the year.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. So Ultimate Mode, I think, is really very similar to normal mode. But I think in that mode, yeah, actually, as you replay, you can then get the other 3. Because when you started, you have those 3 abilities already. And so
But do you always start as Zangetsu?
Yes.
Okay.
In Ultimate Mode, yes.
Okay, so like when you gain the character, it's not like you're starting with Miriam and then she could kill every character and get
it's
new
basically
abilities.
like you're starting from the beginning, except you have the 3 abilities already. And so it's just like, so there's no reason not to take these people with me because there's no reason to kill them now.
Right.
So now you're like even more
Powerful.
like jacked up. Yeah.
Okay.
But are like all enemies, do they have more health? Do bosses have more health?
Similar to Nightmare Mode, it's like the bosses are harder. I didn't notice any increased difficulty with regards to, the rest of the levels aside from the boss, but maybe I missed something. I don't know. But oh man, you just feel so jacked going through.
That's really interesting, because I will say one of the things that I initially, like when I first was starting this game up, I was like, was jotting down some notes and I was like, I think I'm going to mention that like a lot of times like Inti Creates and the developer of this game, they sometimes, and I know I said this at the beginning and I specifically mentioned that I didn't want it to come off as a slight, but I was thinking that like, man, this does feel like they just pawned off this game on like, just crank out an NES Castlevania game. Just crank it out.
It was literally a stretch goal for a Kickstarter. It was like an afterthought that way. Right.
And it really felt that way. And it just like, okay, they're just cranking this out. And it's well made and it's got good music. Nothing super memorable or anything, but it's well made. And I'm immersed in the experience while I'm playing it. But at the same time, it just feels kind of cookie cutter. But knowing that they go to this depth and they have, well, I was going to say, knowing that they have all this depth and these different branching paths and these different, like, oh, you're playing it again, but oh man, it's totally different now that I know what I'm doing and I have these characters and I know that if I am able to preserve them all to get to the end of the level, I can take this shortcut or I can find this secret or whatever. Like it felt like kind of a shallow experience at first. But now going through it again, I don't think I'm with you, Randall, where I want to put this game at like the top of the NES. Like I don't think it stands with Shovel Knight and stuff like that. I think it's definitely a cut below that, at least in terms of like the beef of the package and the soundtrack. Sure. But just like the overall beef of it, it's still a pretty small game overall. I don't mean that to sound dismissive.
No, that's a good thing.
But honestly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I finished it for once. Yeah, yeah. But I do think that it was really nice to see how this game opened up in like the second playthrough. Like I've mentioned before, I love leaving that like, oh, I have an incentive. Like if I do feel like playing this game again, there's a whole different way to play it again, as opposed to like just playing it again because I feel like it. So. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't mean that to sound like I was shitting on it. I liked how it opened up, even though it did feel like it was just this pawned off. Oh, here's a NES Castlevania game, but it's definitely taking that and really polishing it up. And
yeah, I mean, I will say like I don't particularly like the NES Castlevanias, and like if I hadn't like been playing this game specifically to come on a podcast to talk about it, I don't know if I would have actually stuck through and beaten it. But I'm really glad that I did, because I do think that it was a very well crafted game. I think all the levels were like very like deliberately designed to like have very specific mechanics that you use, and like the branching paths I thought were like really well done, so that like even if like one, like say you're not really good at the precision jumping, like then you just go through a different path that maybe has more enemies.
Yep.
Or like say you died with a character that would go through a certain path, well, you still have the ability to go through another path that doesn't utilize their mechanics.
Yep.
So I think it's an incredibly well-made game in terms of like level design, and that it has like, it complements a lot of different play styles, and I think it does that very well. And I'm glad that I beat it, because I do think like the bosses even like had a lot of different mechanics, and
Really fun, yeah.
I liked the boss battles a lot. I thought they were
the boss
really
battles
unique.
were really
Yeah, we
good.
should. I feel like that's worth like just having a whole discussion about, because like it was cool. Like one of the things that I noted was like, and I never had this affect my play in terms like I never got a death or a game over because of this, but it seems like almost every boss, there's maybe one or two exceptions, but like after you kill them, there's kind of like a death blow that they deliver.
Yeah.
That's like you have to dodge or avoid, which in all honesty, most times I took the hit,
Same.
but I had enough health to dodge it. But
It
cool
took
to
3
know.
bosses for me to realize that it was always going to happen. And I probably shouldn't stand next to them, like repeatedly crouching, doing a dance.
Yeah, there was a couple bosses that it like froze right after I killed them, like I couldn't move at all, and I was like, I'm not so sure about this. I'm not comfortable here yet. But yeah, I thought that was a cool mechanic, and the boss battles are all like a small, puzzle platformy challenge. Not puzzles, maybe a little bit strong of a term, but
It's definitely a mechanic. Like you need to learn.
You gotta solve.
You can't survive just by taking every.
It's not
hit.
just
you need to learn
just
their
smash the
patterns.
boss. Yeah.
I would encourage going through the boss rush option.
Oh, I didn't even know that was an option.
It's from the main
Beginning,
like
I think,
yeah,
beginning.
it's like there's
Which actually,
game start then
I
boss
kind of
rush.
like that as an open like option for a game, like because if you're
so from
playing,
the
if you're
beginning, you're talking about before you even beat the game.
Yeah.
It was available.
Ooh.
I believe so, because I had it like definitely after at least the first level.
Oh, interesting.
So, and I don't know if maybe that just has the first boss. I didn't check, but
Okay.
But I think that would be a good thing. Like if you're like not particularly great at bosses, but you're good at the platforming, like you can practice the bosses so that when you have like a set amount of lives, in order if you're going through on veteran mode, or if you're like me who just wants to beat the game. And
Well, see, I mean, I played through on veteran mode, and it took me a little under 2 hours to beat the game, I think. And for the most part, I pretty much breezed through this. I mean, I got a couple game overs, or not game overs, but continues, lost alive. But I mean, I ended with like 9 or 10 lives.
Oh yeah, they give out lives pretty good.
Yeah, and I
And
didn't
health.
find despite being a pretty challenging game, didn't find myself being like frustrated to the point of like throwing my controller. Although I did find myself saying "motherfucker," like while I'm playing. But
I forget, do enemies drop health randomly sometimes?
I don't think so.
Because I was
Yeah, I don't-
wondering,
maybe, but pretty often in the lanterns and stuff. If not the enemies, it's
Or in the
often
walls.
But
Yeah.
yeah, because I think there was a point where like I was after I had gotten a lot of game overs back when I was originally playing on veteran mode, and I was like, okay, if enemies aren't going to drop health, I'm just going to dodge them, and I'm just going to run through because I don't want to play through the first 3 screens or whatever.
Yeah.
So like I'm a very impatient player when I play
Me too.
Metroidvanias in particular. So I don't speed run per se, but I definitely let I damage boost a lot through things just because I want to be quick and I want to like move fast and I want to do things quick.
Well, especially if you have played a little bit of the level and then lost a life or died with a character or whatever, and like you're just playing again,
Mhm.
you're just like just get me back to where I was, So, but yeah, I had a really good time with this game. I'm glad I played it, and to be honest, like again, these older NES Castlevania games, I don't see myself going back to like maybe the original, or definitely not the second game. I hear definitely that one branches out of the formula a little bit. But Castlevania 3, if it's going to go with the switching characters, different power-ups, I might pop this game in again and give it a spin and potentially go back to Curse of the Moon when I, am feeling that itch and play the Nightmare mode or the Ultimate mode.
Can we all agree that Gebel, the Dracula / Alucard character, is the best character in Curse of the Moon?
100%.
Are you serious?
What would you use
Ooh,
otherwise?
let's go.
Oh, wait, hold on. You're talking about the
guy who
guy
could turn
who
into a
throws
bat.
the bats?
Yeah. Yeah.
I still think the mage. The mage is my man.
Oh no.
No health.
Give me
One hit.
Arthur. Give me Arthur all day long.
Alfred.
Alfred. To be honest, I actually
Arthur
think,
Alfred May
what's
Marlene.
the purple character's Miriam?
Yeah.
Miriam, I like her probably the most.
Oh,
I
Miriam
play
is
with
the
her
second
most.
best.
Miriam
easily.
is the most Castlevania control-y character.
It just felt that I like the high jump. I like the
She was the one
the
I felt
long
most
whip.
comfortable with, but I think that Gable was like the best in terms of like the second I got him, I basically didn't
See, I
Yeah,
tended to want to save him for like just in case there was an area that was like, oh, here's a secret area that I can fly over to as a bat or sneak
just
through a little
ration
small
your
tunnel.
superpowers better, man.
Well,
that's-
and
that's-
you don't have to ration. If you use Gebel, like every time you hit a torch or candle or whatever, it's going to be more of
Instead
Because
of
he doesn't have a
instead of a
sub-weapon,
weapon,
right,
so
instead of
he
a
doesn't
sub weapon,
charge,
his
so
sub weapon is automatically turning into a bat, and then he has a bunch of different attacks as a bat. But basically, that's that. So, like, if you just want to beef up on magic, he's a great character to pick.
Yep.
And you also have that ability to like attack enemies like through the floor. Like one of the nice things about this game, and actually with all Inti Creates game, and we'll probably have a little gap before we get to Mighty Gunvolt Burst. But one of the things with at least both of these games, you can attack the projectiles, which is a huge thing that took me a little getting used to. That's not, at least most of the games I play, that's not the norm.
Right.
You're trying to dodge the projectiles as opposed to eliminate them. But this game definitely, that's kind of one of the strategies. And again, with Miriam, with that long whip, you're really able to kind of like, because it'll attack enemies. It's not just the motion of throwing the whip, but even if it's still like out and extended, it'll still attack enemies as long as it's out there, out in the wild. Yeah, you're gonna get some hits. So I found this game to be a lot of fun. I forgot where we were even going with that, but I
We're
had fun.
disagreeing about the best character to use, but
It's Miriam. It's all about Miriam.
DJ, who is your main?
I'd say I'd switch between the two. Like, I think I would go through most of the levels as Miriam primarily, and save Gable for the secret parts where the shortcuts. But like I just played Boss Rush the other day, and I was just switching between the two of them. It's just like the weakness of Gable's like he can't attack things that are like super
Directly,
low
yeah.
right next to him.
Yep.
Like if there's like a rat on the ground,
Oh, yeah,
you can't
beats his
even
ass.
you literally can't attack.
Or like the fifth boss at like the one with all the electricity like shoots all the spears into the ground. Like you can't really attack them and get rid of them with him.
I do like that the bosses kind of almost force you to change characters. Like they may not be specifically designed for one, but there is definitely one that is stronger than the other.
Definitely.
Because I think the last boss, like I almost exclusively used Zangetsu and Alfred.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used Zangetsu in that first version of that last boss.
Oh,
It's
the
like,
first
let him
version.
be the
Actually, for the
damage
first
sponge.
version, I only used Alfred.
Which one was the last boss again? I don't know why I'm drawing a blank.
It's a big. If we're going into the lore,
Spoilers,
of it,
spoilers.
It's a big moon demon.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I don't even remember who I used. I don't even remember who I used. I think it was Alfred.
Because I just had like the fire shield, and I was using it to dodge a lot of the like. Is it like a swarm of
Bats or
bats
something. I don't know.
But
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was using it. Like those crescent moons would come down and like attack you in like a swooping pattern.
yeah,
And you could
they would
basically
always-
just
you'd
they
have
would
to
give you
damage
magic.
some of because
They
you
would
had to
gi-
damage them in order to. You couldn't just dodge them. You had to.
But
farm
they
them
gave you
for-
magic, and then if you use the fire like shield or whatever, you can just plow through those, get the magic, re-up on all your magic, and then
I would
plow
use
through
him
the
for
demon.
when the boss was attacking, and then I would switch over to Zangetsu to attack. So
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
How many attacks could you get in though?
Not a ton.
See, I
It took
was
a
Miriam.
while.
I got 5 attacks.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like with Zangetsu,
4 to
you can only
5.
get like 1 or 2.
We played
Yeah,
different
I basically
ways.
did like dude, that boss took me a long time.
Okay.
So I got
All that-
Alfred's homing attack, which you can only get by
Oh.
flying across the gap with Gebel before you went up the stairs to the final boss.
Okay.
Right.
Well, if you're trying to play it more difficultly, you might play with Alfred and Miriam. No.
I was just having such a good time that
Just the biggest jerk.
No,
motion.
I love all the like flying around and finding different secrets, and actually that Alfred mechanic of like that lightning bolt where you can like essentially you're just shooting those off and then avoiding just dodging the boss's attacks and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I just like all the different ways to play. Like it sounds like we all played this game, or different boss, like the final boss battle. It sounds like we all played it differently. Yeah. So that's pretty cool that this game offers up. It's not like Mega Man where it's like you have to play. You don't have to. Obviously,
Splash
you can beat it with the
Woman
Mega Buster, but like
vulnerable to like
this is the way to play. Whereas like this is like, which way do you prefer playing? And I feel like this game leaves it a little more open-ended. Obviously, the secrets are sometimes specific to each character, but I feel like it leaves it a little more open-ended for how you want to approach the enemies or the bosses. So
totally.
Pretty cool.
So, John, as someone who isn't a huge fan of the old Castlevania games, and maybe Curse of the Moon wasn't exactly your style, like, how'd you feel about Ritual of the Night?
Yeah, so I definitely liked Ritual of the Night. Significantly more than Curse of the Moon. Which isn't to say that I disliked Curse of the Moon, but I really liked Ritual of the Night. Nice. And it definitely came as a surprise to me, like, which is maybe surprising for someone who is such a big Castlevania fan, that like I didn't follow the development of Ritual of the Night at all. I had no idea that there was a Kickstarter for it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I literally thought it was just a game in the style of Castlevania and not a Koji Igarashi game. Like, so I remember even seeing, like, so late in development that when they switched the art style and Igarashi, like, put out a video of him recreating the Dracula scene from Symphony of the Night. Yep. I was like, oh, that's a cool thing for someone to do as a tribute, not realizing it was the guy who created it doing that. But no, so it was a really nice surprise. And I remember even when the like first couple of reviews started coming out and people were talking about it being, janky or having some, especially on the Switch, like frame rate issues.
Oh yeah,
like
lots of bugs.
And I honestly couldn't care less, just because like if you've played a lot of the like DS or like the first game I ever had frame rate issues was Circle of the Moon, the first GBA game, and I had no idea what that was at the time. But it was just like there were too many enemies doing too many things on the screen at one time, and the game just starts chugging. So once that started happening on like Ritual of the Night, I was like, good, I'm home.
I mean, yeah, if you grew up playing retro games on NES, Super Nintendo, any other platform, I mean, you're Genesis. I mean, you're used to that kind of slow down when things get crazy. It almost like it's almost nostalgic feeling,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could totally understand how like someone might see it as a slight against the game, but for me, like, because I've played not every single like Metroidvania game that has come out since, because both like Konami has been very reticent at putting any new.
You're talking about literal
out.
Either Metroid or
games,
Castlevania
because
games,
those are like two of my favorite series, and neither company seems particularly interested in putting out those games.
Right.
So I played a lot of like especially the early like Metroidvanias that weren't necessarily that great. Like, but then once they got, more perfected over years, like Hollow Knight, I thought was an incredible game.
Hell yeah.
And I know that's Kevin's not going to talk.
I don't hate it. I just don't like it. I don't think it's that.
Don't worry, he's already got his bashing in.
I just don't think it's like this amazing game. Like I don't understand what it does differently.
But you don't like the art. That's fine.
Right. But no,
I don't like the game.
But but no, it was like there was a very specific feeling that I didn't honestly think I was missing. That as soon as I started playing Ritual of the Night, I was like immediately taken back. Like even when there was like a bloat of mechanics in a certain area that I didn't want, like, oh, here's an unnecessary crafting screen. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. So yeah, Ritual of the Night scratched like so many itches that I didn't realize I had, like, as a Castlevania fan.
Nice.
Has anyone else played this game?
I've played none of it, to be honest. And I gotta say, even after these, like, I thought it was cool that they updated the art style after getting such like a backlash on just like, oh man, that nobody seems to be into this art style. But personally, I'm still just not. I tend to gravitate towards. I tend to gravitate away from the 2.5D stuff for whatever reason, even though Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is probably my favorite game ever. But I don't know, it just a lot of times loses a lot of character in that. Like, I feel like it tends to be kind of, I don't know, a lot of games that use like a 2D design just tend to be more like Hollow Knight, even though it's a game I don't love personally, but it's a game that every area is unique, even though I personally do feel like there's not enough variety in the zones and the areas and stuff, but like each screen is totally unique from the previous one. You're in a totally unique zone. It's not like, you know, if you're playing Mario Maker, for example, like you're using these tile sets, and I know they're probably using that in Hollow Knight to some degree, but I really feel like it's all created for a specific purpose, as opposed to just being like, here's this next room.
Yeah.
That's just kind of pasted with a slight challenge added to it, you know, if that makes sense.
I will say that's, I think, a strength of the Castlevania series in particular, like the literal Castlevania series, is that like when you have a permanent map that is like every room is deliberately placed where this room goes directly into this one because it needs to be this length in order to connect to the next. So like everything is very well like thought out and put, and that's probably where like the majority of like the planning goes in level design. And there's always like, this is where the roadblock is, and it's going to be telegraphed so you know that you, like, the first time you come across a pool of blood, you know that there's going to be something that you will get that will drain that pool of blood. Like, there is no way you are not going to interact with this giant thing that is so obvious. But like, it's good because then you know, like, okay, I will come back to, and then you learn these locations and you learn the progression of it, and then like, I know you mentioned on an earlier podcast how when you played, I'm guessing it was either, it's probably Aria or Dawn of Sorrow, where you got a bad ending and the game ended like very early.
Dawn of Sorrow. I'm almost positive
because they have those like multiple endings here, and like I did.
It's like, oh shit, she got away. What do you mean she got away? I want to kill that. Kill that motherfucker.
No, because I did that very like, because the whole thing is you're Miriam and you're pursuing Gable, who's been corrupted by this. So yeah, like
Miriam, you play as Miriam?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Why didn't you say this?
Okay, I didn't.
Does she have the long whip? I'm in.
No, look,
long jump, high jump, and long whip. I'm in. So how does this tie in?
It has the exact same characters as Curse of the Moon, like the four main characters. Where you are Miriam as the main character, and I think they have
in Ritual of the Night.
Ritual of the Night,
you play Zengetsu.
Zengetsu is the first character you get in Curse of the Moon,
and he's kind of the main.
Yeah, he's kind of the main dude. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And he's the main anti-hero in this game. He's your rival. You fight him.
Ooh, that's super interesting because they play it as like everyone else. Like he's like, I guess you can join my team. I thought that was kind of interesting. Like they're like, hey, I have this ability. He's like, okay, you're pretty sweet at this. You kind of suck, but I guess you can join my team.
But it also it lays like a pretty good groundwork for why he's so like pissy towards you when you meet him, because the whole thing is like he is a demon hunter. And you and Gable are shard bringers, which are alchemists have used you to take in the power of demons, which is very. Can you
similar. Switch between these characters? Or
no,
you're Miriam.
You're Miriam throughout the whole game, which is interesting. I think they've maybe talked about it being DLC of later on, where they're going to add in different modes in different games or from different characters.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Which is very similar to what they've done in like Aria of Sorrow, where like. Eventually you would be able to play as different characters that you would meet throughout the game, and they would be completely different. Whereas like in Aria of Sorrow, it's a very Symphony of the Night, where you can change equipment and change powers, and you absorb different demon souls. And that's essentially the same thing that you do in Ritual of the Night, where you always have a chance of getting a shard from an enemy. And that shard will be unique basically through any enemy. There are a few enemies that share shards, but pretty much every single unique enemy has a unique shard. So it's a very collecting heavy game in terms, like they have item drops that they have as well, that some of them are craftable, some of them are equipment. So the thing that I think was a very good strength of the early GBA and DS games
was that you would be constantly switching your equipment or constantly switching your like souls in Aria of Sorrow or Dawn of Sorrow, and that you kind of do that in Ritual of the Night. I think the biggest complaint I have with it is that I found a shard combination for like various, like you have a shoulder button one, you have like a sub weapon one, you have a passive one, you have an ability one, like, and I found like one, basically the second shard that I got, and I was like, I'm never using another one.
I'm sticking with this. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I would just get hundreds of them, and throughout the game I was like, nope, still using Ignis Storm Air. Like, this is.
But is that just like a like? Because to be honest, like again, to go back to Curse of the Moon, I had my like one or two characters I kind of wanted to default to, and I would typically use the other characters almost to like as sponges, you know, like let me take some damage with Alfred or with Zangetsu because they don't have the range or they don't have the abilities that I want. But were you feeling like you were making that sacrifice, or was it a different kind of?
So a similar thing is when in the DS games, like anytime you would get a new weapon, sometimes a new weapon would be significantly stronger than the one that you had, but it would be a completely different type.
Right.
So like you might have like a dagger, which is just like a straight attack, like right ahead of you, and
Short
it doesn't do
range
anything.
and,
Or you would have an axe, which is slower, but it's an arc over you.
And like double damage or something,
right.
Yeah.
So like the game is really good at parsing out weapons so that you're constantly switching, or at least typically the way I do it is I'll use whatever the strongest weapon is, and then I will adapt my playstyle to that because I think it switches it up a lot. But the thing that I think like with the terms of shards that I think was a little bit of a misstep was that like there's no leveling mechanic for them. Like there used to be leveling mechanics in I think it was Portrait of Ruin maybe, where like the more you would use one, the stronger it would get. So there was always an incentive, even if you had like one that you liked more. Like for
to
me,
stick with it,
who's a completionist, I would like, okay, but I want 100% like get every one. So I would start using ones that I wasn't necessarily good at, and being forced to use something that I wasn't good at, I would start to see its strengths in different ways.
That's cool.
Whereas for Ritual of the Night, I'm like, okay, I'm just shooting like infinite pillars of fire in front of me. That's always gonna be good.
But does it feel good to be like a powerhouse in that regard? Because sometimes it feels good to just level up and just plow through enemies and stuff like that.
It does. There were only like a few bosses near the end of the game that I was like actually having difficulty with. Honestly, I think I probably beat every boss like on the first go every single time, because like that is a big difference between I think the NES Castlevanias and the like Koji Igarashi.
See, but I could say the same for Curse of the Moon. I think there was only one or two bosses I had to fight more than once, but I beat most of them on the first try.
See, for me, like,
but I'm good at
for
games.
Those, like, but for those games, like, you kind of have a run or two where you are getting damaged by the boss, and
it's
like
strict memorization.
Yeah, and you kind of have to like die a few times, maybe even to learn the patterns or understand this is the progression that the boss takes. Whereas in like the Metroid games or the Castlevania game, like later Castlevania games, like you would be able to take enough damage throughout them, or you've leveled up to enough point where you can sort of plow through and learn it as it's happening. So there's this like dynamic learning of, okay, I understand this is what the pattern is. And maybe you get to a point where you've advanced far enough and you have a small amount of health and you're trying to get it, and the boss switches to its final mode and you're trying to dodge, and you get this like heightened sense of, like, maybe I can do this. Maybe I've gotten far enough, and that I really like that in terms of like Metroid and later Castlevania games that I didn't really get with Curse of the Moon.
Yeah,
that I did get in Ritual of the Night.
It's hard to strike that perfect balance of like, I could beat this boss on the first try. It takes a lot of effort, but I could beat it on the first try if I like figure out the pattern.
Yeah, I might use all of my health items like that I've stocked up.
Yeah.
That seems like a great experience, but like then if you end up dying, it would then feel like, oh, okay, this is really easy. Like I know exactly what to do.
Do you start right back at the boss when you die? Because like
there's always save points.
Okay, because like Curse of the Moon, for example, if you die at the boss, you don't just start right at the boss with all your characters. You're typically going back through like not a huge chunk, but like the last little like challenge of the level. You're typically going through that chunk of the level,
and it's definitely a mechanic of later Metroidvania's games where you have a save room where like you have, and it's usually like there's a very short distance between like a save room and a boss room. So, but the thing that I really like about the exploration in those games is that anytime you go into a new area, you'll be kind of gauging how far you can go, and maybe there's going to be a save room right around the next corner, and you kind of look at the map and you're thinking like, okay, I see the layout of this map, and there's definitely an area where I was like, okay, it's definitely not going to be down that path, and then I start going the other way, and I realize of course it was down the first path, and I fucked myself over.
Right.
But
I actually love the anxiety of like trying to plan that out. Like, how far can I go?
It's so that, and I know that I won't get that on subsequent playthroughs, but like the initial like just exploration, I think was really worth it, and I was really glad.
Okay, cool. You feel good to wrap up Ritual of the Night there?
Oh, I'm good. I've talked enough.
Well, I'd probably go right into, not that it's a smooth transition, but going back to Curse of the Moon Bloodstained, which was developed by Inti Creates. They also developed Mighty Gunvolt Burst, which was a combination of the Mighty Number 9 series and also the Gunvolt series. Am I correct on that, Randall?
Yeah,
it's
definitely
just called
leans
Gunvolt,
more
right?
towards the Mighty Number 9 side, with Beck kind of being the main character of it. But yeah, it's kind of a combination of those two.
Yeah, and you can switch to Gunvolt, and they've actually released a bunch of DLC characters that are like $2 each that all have a bunch of different abilities, like from hovering or flying or combo mechanics, all kinds of different stuff. I just have Gunvolt Beck, and then I think there was one free DLC character. I don't know if it's still free, but it was initially like when it came out. I've never played with that character, but Beck and Gunvolt, and right now I'm playing with Gunvolt and playing through those. And I know you're talking about stockpiling some health items, which kind of made me think of that. You can collect like different fruit throughout the level, like bananas, watermelons, this and that, and those are health items that you can eat throughout the level. And you can also get hearts and things or health packs or whatever to replenish your health throughout the level. But then you can save your food that you have to eat, like during a boss fight, for example. Or at least that's how I've been playing.
Oh yeah,
save that food.
Yeah.
Don't eat it, because the boss fights are pretty tough. Even a little tougher than they are in Curse of the Moon. At least for me, they're a little longer. Maybe 2, 3, 4 different phases per boss.
Damn.
That are gonna, throw you different loops or different curveballs or different challenges. And I just find this game super fun. It's got some crazy, almost too in depth leveling up aspects, like or you can go into like customize your guns, at least with the Gunvolt character who I've been playing with recently.
You can do it with all the characters,
yeah, and you have like, you can pick what type of bullets you want, how large the bullets you want to be, how long they last on the screen, how many times they deflect off of walls. Like it gets really in depth.
So let me talk to that depth for a little bit, though, because that's
go ahead.
A core part of what makes this game stand out from a Mega Man game.
Correct.
It uses this CP system. There's these CP points that basically acts as this like overall cap of points that you have to spend. And as you're going through levels, you're finding a lot of times in hidden blocks, or when you defeat enemies, you'll gain these CP points that might be worth 50, or if you find a secret area, it might be 100. But then that adds to your overall amount of CP points that you can allocate for those things that Kevin was just talking about. The speed of your bullets, the number of your bullets, the size of your bullets, the type of bullets.
Is it a permanent upgrade?
Yeah. Yeah, that you can switch on and off, like on the fly. Even in the level, you can decide to change up how you play the game effectively by.
You can essentially set up like preset perks, like, okay, I want this setup, I want this setup, I want this setup, and you can like switch those, like equip them on the fly.
Yeah, so you don't need to like commit to a certain like setup each
Correct.
Totally. And when I went through the game, I ended up having two main kind of equips. One was like, I want super fast bullets for, certain enemy types. And the other one, I want these like meaty, huge bullets that can bounce off of walls for bosses. Yep. And that just ended up, and it does splash damage or whatever else. And the one that I'm just going through the level on might be faster, and it also has the dousing mechanic attached, where you'll have that HD rumble start going off when there's some secret in a wall that's nearby. So
and pretty similar to like Curse of the Moon or the old Castlevania games. Just blow through the wall, and there's like, not a hidden turkey or whatever, but a hidden,
basically,
little room or power up or whatever.
You hit every wall, regardless, just to check.
Which thankfully you don't have to do with that dousing mechanic. It'll just tell you, and otherwise you just keep rolling through the level, which is nice.
Yeah, it speeds up the process a little bit for sure.
Totally. Although I did want to talk to you how weird that like fruit mechanic is too, though, or that is your health, but you kind of have to pause the game and go into a sub menu just to use the health stuff to regenerate your life.
It's a little clumsy for sure.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't feel as fluid as the rest of the game feels, because otherwise it feels like a pretty fluid experience.
Totally.
You're not like going through, even though it's very reminiscent of the NES Mega Man games, you're not going through and like beating a boss and getting their power up. You're just kind of getting points and items and unlockables and whatever to upgrade your character overall. So it kind of has more of like that RPG arc of upgrading your power-ups as you see fit.
Although you do get a choice at the end of those levels. You get the choice between you can get more CP points, or you can get some sort of upgrade associated with that level or boss. If you want
there's
to.
like 3 rare items per level.
Right.
There's like collectible items that you can find in the level,
right.
And then there's rare items that I think you just get from beating the level, and you get to pick between one of the 3, and then you pick one. Next time you beat it, you can pick one of the 2.
Yep.
And get the rest of them. But I tend to lean towards those CP points just so I can power up my character.
Definitely.
And like I said, I'm playing through this playthrough with Gunvolt, and I'm finding like the boss battles again on. Even though the boss battles in Curse of the Moon were pretty interesting and cleverly designed, these typically have like a little more of that, like, I get a little more of a rush while I'm fighting these bosses. Like there's maybe one more stage to the battle, or one more like kind of quirk to the mechanics that you need to exploit to beat the boss, or whatever it might be. But I just feel like there's maybe a little more depth to these boss battles and even to the levels themselves. And again, it's just like an NES Mega Man classic. There's a lot of these Gunvolt games again on the DS and the 3DS. And I think there's even a couple on the Switch, but pretty fun kind of crossover. It's almost like what Mighty Gunvolt number 9 should have been.
Mighty number 9,
if that makes sense. Mighty number 9, not Mighty Gunvolt.
Yes. Yeah, I really think I'd agree with that. Like, and I played through with Beck, which is the character of Mighty Number 9, and it's just supposed to be like, hey, Capcom's not making Mega Man games, so we're just going to make this thing. And that was one of the first huge Kickstarter things. It's infamous. I probably don't have to tell anybody listening what that's all about. You can read all kinds of long articles about what the hell happened there. But one good thing that did come out of it, at least to the side, was this game, I think. And playing through with Beck, that I'm like, oh, this is actually just like a good Mega Man game. I had a really good time. I beat this game. So
man. Yeah. And that was a little while ago, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I've had a good time, and I intend to keep playing this game, but haven't quite finished it. I would guess I'm about halfway through, maybe a little bit less, but having a good time.
How long did it take you to beat it?
Good question. There's like 13 levels or so, kind of,
which you can pick at will, I believe.
Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe the first level is set, but
So
after
kinda
that,
similar
it
to
seems
a
like you
Mega
can
Man.
pick whatever level you want, and then it'll clear them. But like I said, you can play them again and again to get the new unlockables or different power ups, different little like. There's just some of the like collectibles are just like a little pixel sticker that you can like for when you create your profile. You can just pick a different character or something. So some of them are completely unrelated to gameplay, but some of them really are. So
is there like a max CP that you can gain, or
I have a feeling there probably is throughout if you were to like be a completionist, there probably is a max number out there. I'd be willing to bet. And it looks like based on my playtime, it was about 4 hours to beat it.
I would say I'm about 2 hours in, and I'm finding myself with the flexibility to like pick some different weapons. But yeah, like you said, Randall, I'm sure there's like a cap to like the total number of points or CP points you can have. So.
Oh yeah.
Right, but yeah, 2 hours is a good amount to have that flexibility. That's a good.
Yeah, and again, just like Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, it seems like it has that like replayable avenues, or there's like 7 or 8 I think different DLC characters you can buy that are $2 each, which totally change up the mechanics. Like some of them can fly, some of them can do these crazy dashes or charge ups, or just it seems like you're playing through the same levels, like not tweaked at all. Like, Shovel Knight kind of tweaks them a little bit to like, here's the same level, but to a little tweak to accommodate this character's abilities or whatever. This seems like it's same no matter what, but some abilities that kind of accommodate the level design or the
maybe
or
not
the
as much
enemies.
to the point of like Curse of the Moon, where they have like
not as explicit
paths.
like paths,
Right.
yeah, just different. Like, oh, you can wipe out this enemy faster if you have this ability or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, really cool game. I'm excited to play some more. So
Totally.
Especially after I didn't play much Mighty number 9, but I heard it was a little bit of a disappointment. It was a PS Plus game, not too long ago, 6 months ish.
Yeah, I definitely committed myself to going through the game, which I didn't have the greatest impression.
Mighty number 9, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't have the best first impression of it. Like the art style and voice acting were not really for me, but by the time I got to the end of it, I did really enjoy the boss fights overall, and say I had a pretty all right time with it. So
Nice.
this seems like a way better version of that, though. From what I'm gathering from you guys.
Yeah,
I'm
checking
unfamiliar
out.
with these Gunvolt games, but
I to be honest, I am as well. I've never played any of them. This is my first foray into that franchise or whatever, but it's only $10 normally. I think I grabbed it on sale for 7 or 8, but for $10, I would not complain in the slightest. I mean,
It's good.
This is a pretty fleshed out Mega Man game. Again, apart from the fact that you're not like beating a boss and getting a new power up to beat the other bosses with, but apart from that, like gameplay wise, it's pretty spot on and allows for a little more customization, which is kind of cool.
nice.
Oh yeah, I love that stuff.
So yeah, that was pretty much all I had to say about Mighty Gunvolt Burst. But DJ and I were perusing the eShop earlier today, and we caught a pretty new release. I think it just came out a week or two ago on the Nintendo eShop, at least. It's called Duke of Defense. It's a tower defense game, pixel art style. Normally $15. It's on sale for $3. So DJ snagged that, and I'm definitely going to pick it up as soon as I hook my Switch back up. But we played a couple of levels on co-op. It's got 2-player co-op mode, local co-op that is. And
Yeah, you were comparing this to a game you've played in the past, right?
yeah, Pixel Junk Monsters and
man.
Pixel Junk Monsters 2 in particular, but either one. But you're pretty much you can build a bunch of different towers, and it seemed very similar. You got your arrow towers, your bomb towers,
Nice.
your air defense. Like they seem like they're still shooting arrows out, but
Yeah.
particularly at enemies in the air. There's different like winged enemies or bats and stuff like that, at least on the first few levels. But it's got the same kind of approach. Like you can see the next wave that's coming up on the top of the screen. There's like a little like kind of UI system. You can see how many waves are coming. You can see, you can swap out the trees, or basically where you have to swap out. You have to spend money and then pick a tree to swap out for either a bomb tower or whatever tower you want to pick. And there's little winding paths that the enemy travels.
So it's really similar to
it's
Pixel
super
Junk
similar.
Monsters.
There's even like there's gems that you have to collect to build up the more powerful towers, like along with the coins. Like it's super similar, but it's a strictly 2D style, a pretty primitive pixel art style, like 8-bit, but like almost more primitive than that.
It's a stylistic 8-bit though. It's not like just
like almost like that, like swords and sorcery, or not swords and sorcery, but like sword brothers, super brothers. That's Super Brothers EP. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
like
very thin,
the long.
elongated.
Yeah. But yeah, it's got a 2-player co-op mode, so we're a local co-op mode. So we're like, let's check this out for $3. And we played the first few levels and had a lot of fun.
Nice.
There's a few little like quirky things that are a little bit annoying, like the UI system. Like, for example, I'm player 2, So like whenever, even if I'm upgrading a tower that's on the left side of the screen, like the little upgrade doesn't pop up right above the tower that I'm at. It pops up on the right side of the screen because I'm player 2.
Oh.
Like, it takes up like almost the full half of the screen. Like, do you want to upgrade the range or do you want to upgrade the power for this this arrow or this like kind of like crossbow tower, I guess. And you get to upgrade it, I think, 5 times each. Like, each tower can upgrade it up to 5 times. You just kind of stand on the tower, just like in Pixel Junk Monsters. And just kind of like, you don't dance or anything like that, but you just kind of stand and you can see the bar charge up.
But definitely is that risk reward stuff that you like, where it's like you could be using your builder to go out and, you know, slash the enemies and be in a better position to collect the gold when they drop it because it doesn't stay there forever.
Yeah, and you do have a sword and a dodge roll, which is something that in Pixel Junk Monsters, the original game, I don't think you have any means of attacking the enemies. I think in 2, you can jump on some of the enemies.
Yeah, you can do kind of a jump homing attack type of thing.
Yeah, but it's a little bit difficult to manage. Like in this game, you can legitimately like, okay, I'm going to set up. Let's set up some air. Like we didn't necessarily do this strategy, but you can like say, okay, I know there's a bunch of flying enemies coming up on the next wave, so we're going to set up some air towers on this first wave with the initial money we get, and we're just going to go for hacking and slashing this first wave. And you realistically could accomplish that. Maybe not every enemy without taking any damage. And it does have a little bit more of like an overarching upgrade system, like some of the levels. I don't know if we perfected them. We definitely didn't perfect them because we took some damage.
Definitely haven't perfected any, but there were some levels where we were given these skill points upon completion.
A coin. It was like a gold coin.
Yeah, and then we could, in the hub worlds, you know, buy these permanent upgrades, like increase your, you know, slashing attack or, you know, your build time for towers, stuff
or
like
the
that.
number of coins, the number of coins you get for killing enemies with the sword, or how quickly you can attack with the sword, and you have a dodge roll that you can avoid enemies with as well. I think I might have mentioned that before, but
are those just like individual upgrades you can choose, or is it in like a skill tree type of format?
There appears to be like some branching. We don't know if that means necessarily that you can only pick one. I would assume.
I couldn't tell if you could pick one or the other, or if you just had to like particularly. There was some that looked like you definitely had to like you had to unlock this one to unlock like the branching paths off of that. And there were like it looked like maybe 3 different sets. Like here's your sword upgrades. Here are your like magic or whatever upgrades, and here are your tower upgrades. Right,
your builder.
Yeah, it was like 3 sets of 7, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like, again, that really primitive pixel art style, and again, to get to it sooner than later, the soundtrack is fantastic. Like it is, there's some really like interesting timings. Like one of the songs is in like a 7/8 rhythm, a lot of like waltzes almost, but crazy, like really good dynamics. Like there was one point where we were playing and I was like, we were like the very first level, I think, or maybe even on the opening screen. And I was like, we were like, oh, this soundtrack is awesome. And I was like, just give me some drums. And then there was like a field like, and we were like, oh, here it is. And then it kicks in right after that. It was really cool. Like just really, and every level so far, we've only played like, I think 5 levels so far. But each level has had its own song, and we're still in the first world that seems to have like 2 or 3 different like kind of subset or subworlds that have 3 levels each. Again, very similar to Pixel Junk Monsters.
Right.
And what each level is maybe like 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5, 7 minutes.
That sounds
and it's all in real time too. Like the building phase, like there's not like you build and then you select that you're done. Like it's like there's a timer that's counting down the whole time until the next wave. So
you're building mid wave and stuff like that. It's
and one thing that was cool that we realized, like we played the first 4 levels co-op, and then DJ we were showing John the game after he got here.
Yeah,
and then when
Kevin
DJ
didn't want to play with me anymore.
I'm still feeling a little bit of hernia pain here, so I was laying down on the shag rug, and DJ was playing solo, but he was able to pick up right where he left off. So
that's sweet.
Like same skills that I already
same
picked
level.
before.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So all the skills we unlocked applied to just both of us. It wasn't like I picked mine and he picked his. It was all universal.
Nice.
But really fun. I haven't picked it up yet, like I said, but as soon as I hook my Switch back up for $3,
Yeah, that
and
sounds
again,
sweet.
even for 15, again, there were a few bugs that we came across, or a few little like glitches, but other than that,
But it just came out too, for what that's worth. So
yeah, plenty of room for fixing it up and potentially even adding more content to the game. A lot of these games tend to do that. So
right.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna plow through this probably by
More to come.
I would imagine we'll talk about this game a little more next week. Yeah.
It's awesome. So yeah, from one building game to another, let's talk a little Dragon Quest Builders 2, huh?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that.
So, how much have you played of this, Randall?
So I'm only in like the first, I think I've got like an hour down. I just made to the Furrowfield Island.
Yeah.
But you've played a lot of the original game, correct?
Pretty decent amount. I didn't beat it by any means, but I got enough into it to know what it was about.
Nice. How many chapters did you do of the first game?
Oh boy, I can't remember at this point. Not
Because I know they had 4, and it's a similar layout of Dragon Quest Builders 2. But
okay.
I remember I was when I first started playing the game, like I think I texted Kevin that was like, man, this game makes like Dragon Quest Builders 1 look like a beta.
Yeah.
Like they've improved like on so many different levels. They've added so many quality of life improvements.
Yes.
Like just everything is just so much easier to access and navigate. But like I played a ton of Dragon Quest Builders 1. Like I beat that game and I played a significant amount of time in the free world, which was essentially just like Minecraft game, like free build level.
Oh, okay,
where
yeah.
you
Just
could-
like the create section, basically.
Yeah,
of
once
idea.
you like unlocked every recipe in each like chapter, it would be unlocked in the free build mode.
Gotcha.
And there's a similar mechanic in Dragon Quest Builders 2 where you have the main like story chapters or story islands in this game where you'll go to them and you'll unlock new mechanics. And the mechanics are so fleshed out in this game. And they add a lot of a thing that I really like is there was always kind of a light AI in the first Dragon Quest Builders. Like you could build specific rooms, and then your townsfolk would go in like in the kitchen, they would cook food, or in like the smithy, they would craft items.
Right.
But there's way more like involved for the AI of the like townsfolk in the various islands in your main island. How far are you in Furrowfield?
Just got there, just saved that other character, so like barely at all.
Right.
Just
So,
enough
yeah,
to
like-
know it's like this is the farm island, or seemingly.
Yeah. And the islands do a really good job of like communicating those specific mechanics. So
Yeah.
like the first one, like you'll learn like bit by bit, like, oh, certain crops grow in certain conditions and you have to grow different fields.
Yeah.
And like they'll have like different quests laid out so that you learn like the different mechanics a little bit by a little bit. And they still have the kind of tower defense-y, honestly. Like it's very similar. Like I don't know another way to describe it, where like there'll just be, you've built up your defenses around your town, and then there's just going to be wave of enemy coming, and
Right.
they're going to be attacking your walls and trying to break your rooms that you've built. And it's just up to you to like defend against these waves of enemies, which I think like I saw as more of a nuisance in the first game.
Yeah.
But I think they've also kind of built it a little bit better now. I think they only did it after like the main boss in each chapter in 1, but now in case like if any enemy comes and like thoroughly wrecks your base, like your townspeople just rebuild it as it was before. Which is so nice if you've like meticulously placed every piece of furniture.
Yeah, that's a
in
nice quality
room.
of life thing.
Yeah. But yeah, that's basically the whole of the game, is that it's just Dragon Quest Builders 1, but like they've made so many improvements just to make it more accessible and more easy to play.
Are these like improvements things that you recognized were needed as you were playing the first one, or is it just like, oh, like I was surprised by this, and now looking back,
As soon like
I can't go back.
Honestly, there were some where it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm just used to like placing 2 blocks like at like in 1 second, and then moving on into the next and doing that 1,000 times in a row. And then
Yeah.
as soon as you're like, oh, let me just put up an entire wall at once, you're like, good lord.
Well, even there was like that, I think you said it was like the trowel mechanic.
Yeah.
You're swapping out like 9 or 12 tiles at once for like, I want to swap these all for sand tiles, and you switch them all to
That's a big
sand,
deal.
and then you
it's so
also gather all whatever that land was previously before.
Yeah, they give you a lot of different tools that are like from an easily accessible menu, like mapped to a button. Whereas like before, I feel like, if I remember correctly, that in Dragon Quest Builders 1, like your mallet was in the same equipment slot as your like sword.
Right.
So like you like had to choose whether you were attacking or like building, whereas now they're mapped to separate buttons.
Right.
And even that is mapped to it. Like there's a glove that you can just pick up items without necessarily having to like break them with a mallet. Or the trowel, which you can use to either like fill in a wall or swap whatever like in a specific square area. And there's I haven't even unlocked all of them. I know like you get these objectives on the main island, which is kind of the free build island, but at the same time they still have like some light goals, but there's not as much like specific objectives as like on this specific islands that you have.
That's cool though.
Yeah, it's really great. And they also have these procedurally generated islands that kind of service as scavenger hunts, where you go to, like, you are given 2 separate groups of items that you're looking for, and you go and you check off when you found them. And when you find them, you unlock a permanent craftable item or a craftable resource as an unlimited. So the very first 2 that you unlock, or the very first island that you can unlock, is the 2 craftable resources you can get are wood and dry grass. So anytime that you need to craft something with wood, you will have an unlimited amount of it. So you don't need to farm for wood. Like, you don't need to just be going around like with a hammer
breaking things apart,
every single tree you find. Like, and especially when you're like crafting most furniture like that requires wood, just having that be unlimited resource is such a nice thing that I never thought that I like wanted or needed. And then as soon as I had it, I couldn't imagine going back without it.
And what about that like hover, like paragliding, Breath of the Wild-esque mechanic? Was that in the first game as well?
It was not.
Okay.
Again, like once you
is
get
that
it to
from
me,
the get? Like, do you have that from the start? Or
not from the very start, because I do not have that yet.
Oh, okay. Once you get it, you are going to be just climbing everything and jumping off it to travel.
Man, I love that.
I think it's the same speed as your dash too, but it doesn't use any of your stamina. So, like, it's as soon as you are like 2 like blocks above ground, like anytime I would use it as opposed to running.
Oh geez.
Yeah, you almost morph into like a little mini like pop figurine of your character. It looks like I don't know, something
you're
looks
just holding on to
different
a
about
little
your character.
Yeah, holding on to a little blanket and you're just hovering.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's a really fun game. I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm I think in the final chapter right now, but I'm still I have the opportunity to advance, and I'm just hanging out on the main island, just building more buildings.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
Are you completionisting this game?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely am, but I need to build more toilets. So,
jeez. Yeah, can you get your towns to a place where you can just kind of leave them alone and not have to manage stuff, or do you always have to kind of?
I didn't show you. I gave Kevin and DJ like kind of a tour of my
sneak peek
of my main island. Now that I've completed like the 3 main other islands that are like the story islands. And those story islands are very long as well. I think like the first one, once I reached the point where I thought it was done, I was like halfway done with it. So like they are a time commitment. And when you finish an island, then only after you finish that island, when you come back to the main island, do you unlock all the recipes you learned from that island. So there's always an incentive to like finish them before going back. So even when I was like getting to a point where I was like, man, there's so many things that I want to do back on my main island, but I also want to have this wall available that I can build. So like there's always an incentive to go back and finish it.
And it's my understanding that everything you make is persistent regardless of the next quest you take on, right? Like it's going to stay there for the most part.
For the most part, yes, but there is like specific crafting tables that you have access to.
Yeah.
So which was very similar to the first one, where like you would get to an area, but it was like a mining area, so you only had access to a forge or like a mining table.
Okay.
You couldn't necessarily build like farming stuff, so you wouldn't be harvesting like crops there.
Yeah.
You'd be focusing mostly on getting ore and like refining it and making things with that. It's similar in that in the like specific islands that are story based. But once you get back to the main island, yeah, you have access to everything and you can do anything there. But to go back to like DJ's point about because the AI I think is way more developed in Dragon Quest Builders 2. Once I finished the farming island, I have built a farm like full of fields for every single crop, and I have not been there since basically I built it, or I just go back to plant a new crop that I find, and I come back there and the entire thing has been like, taken care of. They've been depositing the crops. I have more cabbage than I could ever use in my lifetime. They have been actively doing that. They've been not necessarily expanding beyond what I've built, but they are definitely taking care of what I've done.
That's sweet.
That's
awesome.
So it's fun to come back and just be like, oh, cool, I've got like infinite sugarcane.
Yeah, reliable employees.
I know I've been enjoying this game. I haven't played it a ton, but like the hooks are already in. Like I just enjoy being in the world. It's really colorful. Mm-hmm. It's got that great Dragon Quest soundtrack going for it. My 11-month-old daughter like just loves it. She like laughs at the screen just because it's so like vibrant and fun and just looks like a cartoon in like the best possible way. So yeah, I'm going to be playing more.
I was showing my fiance like there's the like Powie Yowies, which are the Yetis, and if you feed them an ice like popsicle, then they turn like all the ground around them into a snowy scape. And then the second Lauren saw that, she's like, "Oh, that's adorable."
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Randall, because I was going to mention like the little bit that John showed us, like. The world feels very lived in.
It does.
Like the enemies just kind of pop up. Like I like it does feel a little barren in a way, but it just feels.
It's a massive improvement over 1.
Yeah, and it is just kind of like Minecrafty or voxely or whatever you want to like it. The characters and whatnot are way more detailed than that, but like the world itself is definitely just cubes. But it feels more dynamic than that.
Definitely.
It's not just these like little puzzles that you're putting together, these little structures. Like it's definitely a more fleshed out experience.
And they definitely do a good job on like the main island and I think it might be like terrain based, where I think like in a desert area they'll like spawn more like scorpions, or like in a muddy area they have like an earthen hand like enemy, or like in a rocky terrain they spawn these enemies. So they do a good job of like, even though like there's maybe not like set areas for each enemy, like the enemies are very like specific to a terrain that you've built, so it like it makes sense.
It's much more than Minecraft plus objectives. This is like a fully fleshed story-based thing, and it's good.
Yeah, it's really good. And even it's also like a very Dragon Quest story. So like, even though it looks cute, like the very first thing is like you come up on like you get shipwrecked on a shore, and there's just like corpses.
Yeah, they're just straight up dead. Like just real corpses just sitting there. Whoa.
I was not prepared for that. I was, and like one of them is like still alive, and your god of destruction friend, like he's like, "Oh, want me to finish them off?" Yeah. I was like, Jesus, dude.
But nope, there's just like 3 other corpses just lying there, along with some slimes, some dead slimes.
Speaking of corpses, let's kill this episode.
We could just roll from there. Screw it.
Yeah.
All right, so that pretty much wraps us up this week. Thanks for listening to Pursuing Pixels. This is episode 13, and like we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we did the Game of the Month this week, and we're going to do the Game of the Month for August, and we're going to dip into the Breach this time around. We've been playing a bunch of strategy games between Pad North and 8-Bit Invaders, and I think there's been a few others around, and we're going to dive more into that. John's played... I think all the way through this game to some capacity, so
dang,
we'll probably bring you back if you're down to join us again. Yeah,
you'll have me.
We'd love to. We'd love to.
Yeah, thanks.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we'll pretty much wrap it up there. So hope you all have a good night, and we'll catch you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Like I said, or God, let me start over.
Yeah,
like I said,
you numbskulls.
I need to repeat myself.
This has been Pursuing Pixels, morons.
Listen here, sweetheart. This has been Pursuing Pixels, sweetheart.
We've been sinking the whole time.
Sinking like a stone to the bottom of the sea, see? Stupid.
You took a breath to lisp stupid.
Now I can't breathe. I gotta go to casual mode.